Well, it looks, dude, I was reading your bio and it looks like you've got everything. Let me double check. But it looks like you got everything except a book. You got a book in the works?
That's a great question. I've been thinking about doing it, and I have a few times. I've been writing a few for a long, long time. One of them's a fable,
Yeah.
fiction. But I am. It's in the works. I just don't know if that's going to be the first one yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, dude, I get it. I was mainly just teasing you because like I see
yeah.
people because I get asked it a lot of times too, right? I feel like we're very similar. That's kind of one of the reasons I was
Mm.
really drawn to this conversation with you. We got, you have a podcast, ValueVerse. You're also a coach and a business owner. And so I felt like this would be a really cool conversation because we got a lot of things in common. And I get
Mhm.
asked all the time, like, when are you writing a book? And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm like Gary Vee. I write books in my head, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah, you're right. I mean, especially when you've gone through so much, I guess it's only fitting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, dude. Well, Kawan, tell us everything you got going on. I mean, like I said, you're a podcast host. You're a fitness. You got a few gyms. Tell us your story. Tell us how it all started.
Yeah, thanks, Dalton, for having me on. It's a pleasure. I started off by, just stumbling into fitness really. And I got into that back in 2009. It wasn't anything planned, nothing super exciting. Just somebody came, knocked on my door and asked me to go for a run. And, I tell it over and over again, but it just really is about answering that call and kind of how it presented itself to me. And I think being ready for that is the most important thing in someone's life. So, I did that and I worked out consistently. And that's when I kind of got hooked, you could say, or caught the bug there and
Mm-hmm.
loved the whole process of improvement, of becoming better and mastering, yourself really. And it's been a quest ever since. And I don't think it really ever stops. But I got into that and pretty soon, I met somebody else that introduced me to personal training. And then from there, I had the wonderful opportunity. I was very extremely lucky and blessed to be around influential people. And I learned a lot, man. I trained 10,000 hours, hundreds of clients, and picked up a bunch of certifications along the way. And they just became my life. It became an obsession, and a healthy obsession at that, because it's all I loved working out, and I loved teaching people about working out.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, I get caught up in, being a business owner, you get caught up in the numbers and then the means of things, and you start to lose track of what that is, why you're doing it. And I ran across one of our members, and he was just stoked, man, on having lost all this weight and going through this transformation of his own. And I said, that's it right there. That's why I did this, is because of that feeling where somebody can change their life or change themselves and work on themselves. And that's the feeling that I was passing on. So it's easy to get lost in there, and learn all these things along the way. So, long story short, I met my business partners, and it's been a wild ride ever since. So we started doing that. And then shortly thereafter, I said, I've been doing all this studying, I'm doing all this work. I should have something that I can talk about it on or give back. And that's when ValueVerse came up, and podcasting came about.
Yeah, right on. How'd you come up with the name ValueVerse? I mean, what inspired you to name it that, and then do the format that you picked?
Thanks, man. Yeah, I basically I tried looking for the right name for almost 6 months, and I couldn't. And when I say I tried looking, it was something that was on the back burner, and I procrastinated.
Yeah.
And it was right during the pandemic, actually. And I told myself one day, look, you're either going to launch this thing, or you're never going to do it. And it's going to be something that you look back on and say, Oh man, actually, that would have been cool. And I didn't want to have that feeling. So value is something that I always looked at as you're, in this life, in this world, you're a person of value, and your outcome is dependent upon the problems you can solve, the things you can do, and the benefits you can help others with by giving, and
Yeah.
verse is words. So essentially it's beneficial words, or, a verse being a space. So a space of benefit or beneficial words.
I like that. You know what's funny? I really like that name, and I always love when like there's a name has like a good meaning like that to it. But I was so I do a little bit of coaching on the side, like very
Mm,
light coaching to help like people start a virtual assistant business, and
mm,
uh, and yeah, I had this whole class, planned out, and I was going through some of like the trials so we could weed anything out. I mean, we got through the whole thing, and I was like, man, this was great. They're gonna love it. And like it was crazy how the one thing that I missed was like how to name your business. And it never even occurred to me that that would be like a hard thing. You know what I mean?
right,
But
right.
and not a hard thing, but like, it's like, oh my gosh, what do you name? What do you like name anything? Like you know what I mean? What do you name your business? What do you name your podcast? I don't know. I mean, I just had a lot of things. I guess it came easy for me. I just had a lot of things click and it came in at the right time. But I just thought that was, a funny experience on my end because of what, of your experience. It's just like, oh yeah, what do you name? And it's true, dude. It's hard for a lot of it.
You got it right for the podcast. I love the thinking project. I
Right.
think that's brilliant. Definitely a good topic there, and it definitely elicits some thought and stimulates the mind. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the whole point of it was to meet people like you and just to get people like, really like that was the point was like to get people thinking, like,
Mm,
how can you make money?
mm,
How it doesn't like not everybody looks like, and I just wrote about this today, but like, the biggest thing you can do to hurt yourself is you have this vision in your mind of what you think success look like or what
mm.
you think wealth looks like. You know what I mean? Because like, I've met millionaires before. You'd never think they were millionaires. Not because they were like, you know what I mean, but just because you had this preconceived notion in your head of like, I think, a millionaire is like Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, where like, he's in like the Ritz or something. And you know what I'm saying? Like you just get
Right.
these things in your head. And that's not what I wanted people to I wanted people to understand that you could be successful and be who you are and not, you know what I mean?
That's right. And I think nowadays that's so much more important than ever, is to be authentic with who you are. I was reading this book. What was it called, man? The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you've heard of
Oh,
it.
wow. Yes.
Yeah, it
I
was.
love Naval.
Yeah,
He's
it was.
amazing.
I saw it on Amazon, and it was it was a good price, so I just scooped it up on the Kindle there, and then so I'm reading it, man, and I'm like breezing through this thing because he says in there that nobody can be you better than you can be you, and that's what you have to kind of run with. I thought that was so brilliant because if you try to do what somebody else is doing, or you, like you said, you have a preconceived notion, and you're not going to be telling the truth really, and it's going to be difficult. But if you're you, then no one can be better than that. So
Oh, yeah.
it's just the way he said it was brilliant, or the way it read.
Oh, no, Naval is he's wonderful. I mean, he's got all those one-liners. I follow him on Twitter, and yeah, I mean, that's just what he does. That's Naval. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, right? Like the only, nobody can be you better than you can be you. I feel like all of that got kind of taken, a little early because like taken away from people, like people were not drawn to it kind of early. And I don't know why, because like that's what you sell, right? Like you're you know what I mean? I mean, do you have any thoughts on like why it's all of a sudden coming back and why some of these old principles kind of were tossed by the wayside and now they're kind of coming back?
It's a great question. I think in this information, I guess, age where we're so much available all the time, right? I mean, just scrolling through, my Instagram, there's like 15, 20 people trying to tell me something, right? And I'm like, and as let aside the people that I follow or the accounts that I follow, it's just, ads all day. And I think everybody's trying to look
Yeah.
for the answer, everybody's trying to find or look outside themselves and try to latch on or find something there. And meanwhile, it's all here with us, right? It's all within, like he says in the book as well. And I think that's the most important thing is to look where we don't expect to look, and that's within us, within ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's kind of like the know yourself kind
That's
of
right. Yeah.
principle, because I mean, all the answers are here. Like, we have them. You know what I mean? We just got to be willing to like figure it out and sit with ourselves and not be caught up in all the motion and everything, man. It's so true. Is that kind of I mean, is that a similar journey to you when you started your gym? I mean, you have like 3 gyms, right? Did I read that right? You got 3 or more.
Yeah, 3 in right now in operation, and then 4 and 5 by the end of this year, hopefully.
Oh,
So
wow, man.
waiting on that, and then
Yeah.
just a lot of movement there, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Now
kind
te
of it.
Yeah, now tell me more about the story. You mentioned at the beginning, uh, you got a knock on the door and you went for a run, and that's kind of what kicked this off. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it was I moved. Everything happens, for literally everything happens for a reason. I moved to LA from Virginia. I met this guy and my friend George in an acting class, believe it or not.
Cool.
And we linked up, and I think we had joked about it maybe a couple of days before or something. We should
Uh-huh.
go for a run, and I laughed it off. I didn't know I didn't think he was serious. So, um, he showed up at my door in running gear, and Dalton, I was a smoker at the time, man. I smoked
Uh-huh.
a pack a day. Exercise was the last thing on my mind, and he just had a kind of a look about him. He asked me if I wanted to go for a run, um, and he wasn't going anywhere. He was just standing there, and I was like, "This guy's serious. He's not gonna move right now." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So like, what do you? I guess I'll go get my running shoes then. It was just something about him. It was like a pull that it was just like he was just called to do it or something.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you're going to get that, in your life where something's here to, show you or teach you something that is going to be one of the best things for you. And you
Yeah.
just got to be able to answer that call. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I did. So I went on that ride, laced up if you want to call them running shoes, they were just all beat up. I walked a lot in LA because I didn't have a car.
Okay.
So I biked and I bought a bike that was $100, and I was like, man, this is a lot of money. And I moved there in the height of the recession of 2009, so it was tough, man. I couldn't
Yeah,
get a
yeah, I
job. It took me
bet.
6 months to get like a restaurant job, right?
Mm.
And so I went and basically, went on this run, and man, I'm no kidding, man, it floored me, right? Like I was hurting, man, and I was laying on the ground, in a neighbor's yard, and just passed out, like just on the verge of like passing out, just getting super dizzy.
Whew.
And I got home. I was in an extreme amount of pain. Like I was disappointed in myself. Just all the things you could feel. And
Yeah.
that's the feeling that made me really look at my life and my choices there. I started thinking about the things I was doing, my health, and that's kind of where the quest kind of began. A little bit before that, and I had like kind of a lot of trials and things that I went through personally, and that's when I moved there, that's when it all began. I started this process of looking at some of the things I was doing and trying to improve at. And so he couple days passed by, and he said, "You want to go for another run?" And there was just a part of me, man, that I was inclined to do it. I wanted to give it another go. So I just went again, and I noticed I was a little bit better this time. I wasn't passing out or anything, and that's kind of, I think, what drew me to it.
Yeah.
It clicked for me
Yeah.
that this was something I could do if I worked at it, and that's kind of, I would say, the light bulb or the aha moment. Um, I kept doing it, and then yeah, before you know it, I was signing up at a local gym there, and I rode my bike 5 miles to get to the gym.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just
Wow.
signed up. I still have my paper because you know, it's when you realize that something is within your reach, that's when
Yeah.
you say, you know what, I can do this. It's doable. And I think that's
Yeah.
when we build that efficacy or that determination to do it. So that was kind of it. And then I just stuck with that, and I loved it. I loved working out. I basically I told my buddy who, we were going to the gym, and I made a pact with him. I said, man, I'm not going to stop working out until I get, where I want to be and how I want to look, and all the stuff that comes with fitness, all the positive benefits. And then you
Yeah.
could say that was kind of it right there. I just embarked on a journey of learning everything I could about fitness.
Yeah, that's incredible. But that's such a great story, and that's kind of like those are the things that I love about this. Is that keep going, like, just start. At some point you got to be like, look, I got to do this, right? I got to answer the call of like this little voice in my head that says go, or sometimes we do. Sometimes we stumble upon the things that are like, hey, you should just do this, or like, or this guy's not going away, so let's just give it a shot. But I'm like you. I remember the first time that I went on like a real run. We had traded a guy. It was like a really funny story. But I remember the first time I went on a run, and yeah, it was terrible. I mean, I was fat. I'm still fat, but I'm more in shape than I was when I went on that first run because I was like, dang, dude. But yeah,
Oh
you're
man,
right.
I think you're pretty buff, man. You look good.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I no, I do, but I do remember that, man. I remember that. And so for you, I mean, is that where I always like interviewing when I interview fitness? I've interviewed a few people, yourself, and I've interviewed a few people with, in Utah where we're at right now, like the fitness and beauty industry is huge. It's like ginormous. Um,
Wow.
and so I've interviewed a few people, and I always like to hear the story of like, and maybe I'm jumping the gun on this one, but of like where you got like your empathy from, like how did how do you understand what people go through when they come to you and they're like, hey, I want to lose weight, and and how hard that is for some people.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the most important thing is having, I always say a good trainer is, or a personal trainer or anybody in fitness has a story and has the education to back up, that experience as
Yeah.
well. And the experience comes from the story of going through what you go through. And that's kind of what makes you where you are or helps you become who you are. And, you know, a lot of it is understanding what it takes because of having gone through it, and also being their friend, being
Hmm.
their guide in a sense. Where I look back on some of the people that took an interest in me, and they had great empathy and great patience, and those were kind of my role models. So I learned from people around me a lot, that people that were doing it very well, and that's kind of where I learned a lot of that from, having gone through it myself, and also being able to just be very patient and understanding during the process. It's just they're going through something you have no idea about. It's their journey, and you kind of just have to guide them. You gotta walk beside them and
Hmm.
tell them the pitfalls, the ahead, the positive things that are coming. And it's a wonderful and really interesting journey, because they meet you. I've met all types of people, and they come with you, they tell you their problems, you've become friends with them, and you get close. So, they share things with you they may not share with, their significant others. And you really have moments in between workouts, in between sets
Hmm.
and reps. And it's just so much more than the workout. It's all
Yeah.
about that quest that they go on. And then, something happens, right? You go through this arc where they kind of reach their goals, and some don't. But the ones that do, you only hope to leave them better than when you found them, and
Hmm.
hope that they continue when you're gone. So they leave, and then you see them, and it's kind of like you were just this guy or girl hanging out, and they came and found you in the middle of the jungle there, and here you are, and you say, hey, let me show you something here. And then you take them on this walk, and they get these knowledge gifts from you, and go about their own way. And that's kind of the story there, and you'll always have those moments together, and you can just hope that they continue to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think what you were kind of getting at there, at least what I took away from it, and something that I love, like telling people when we talk about trainers and coaches and things like that, is like it's not about you. You as a coach, you help them find what keeps them going, right? Like, especially in fitness, because like for me, like I actually like hate the gym. Like I don't mean like lifting weights and stuff, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, man. I just I was into it in like high school and college and stuff like that. um but I just kind of fell out of it after all of that, after the sports ended and stuff like that. So but now I go to more of like I do jujitsu. So I do like
Mm,
that's my workout.
that's awesome, man. How long
You
you been
know
doing that?
I've been doing jujitsu. So I wrestled forever. I mean, I wrestled. I'm from Iowa originally. I wrestled for like 13, 14 years.
Wow.
And then been doing only jujitsu, been doing jujitsu for like 2 years altogether. I started like post pandemic, and then there were some gym interruptions there. And but then, kept going like that. But
Yeah, much
yeah,
respect.
man.
Much respect for that, man.
Well, but that's what you know what I'm saying. So, but as a coach, like for you though, you got to find what'll keep people going. You know what I mean? Like, and kind of tailor it to them. So it really is about them, because if they're gonna keep doing it while you're gone, it's got to be, you know what I'm saying, something that they're gonna keep doing, right?
That's right. And you got to speak their language. You got to
Yeah, that's
know.
a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to know who they are and what they respond to. If you're training them all the same, it's going to be harder for it to stick. And once you get them to realize what that is for them, the benefits that they'll have, that's when you got somebody that's driven. And
Mhm.
for me, it was just something as simple as, I'll never forget. And good coaches, you'll see them. They take away, and they do a less is more approach. So for me,
Mhm.
it was something that, to join the gym. My friend said, had you joined the gym, we would have put 5 pounds of muscle on you by now. And that stuck with me, because I thought to myself, damn, I lost all that time. That I could have been 5 pounds of more muscle heavier. So
Yeah.
that clicked. And literally, Dalton, the next day I went to the gym, because I thought about it as something I lost. So I said, I never want to feel that again, and I have nothing but gains to have if I go. Literally.
Oh, well, no, that's a great way to think about. I mean, that's a good way to be motivated, like by this idea that you have more to gain each day, and that thought of I should have is a scary thought. Like, oh man, I could have done that, because nobody likes that guy at a party. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh
That's
yeah,
right, man.
I almost went, or I almost did that. Yeah, we don't want to hear almost, bro. I want to hear that you did. You know what I'm saying?
That's right, man. And you hear it all the time, and
Right, right.
I stopped saying that a long time ago, just because I'm like, well, you didn't do it, so either you weren't doing it, or you weren't
Yeah,
feeling it. But don't say that you almost, and don't talk either. Just be
yeah,
about it. That's kind of what I told myself, and I'm real careful with the things I say now, because
yeah.
if I commit to something, I'm like, no, you said you're going to do it. Now, if you don't do it, people are going to make fun of you, and they're going to hold it against you forever. So I'm like, all right, I guess I better do this.
Uh, yeah, no kidding, man. It's true though. It's true, man, because yeah, you do. There is that thing inside of you that, you want to tell yourself that you're going to keep going. Because I read this, we talk about books a little bit, but I read that book by the Arbinger Institute, Leadership and Self Deception, and they
Mm.
talk about in there, self betrayal, and
Uh,
how these little self betrayals like lead us to a path of like less empathy and stuff like that. And it's as little as like, they brought up like it's as little as like brushing your teeth. Like, you wake up, you're told, brush your teeth in the morning, but you're like, I'm not brushing my teeth in the morning. That's stupid. Right. And then now you're going like, now you started your day with this nagging thought in your head that was like, you should have brushed your teeth. Like you knew you were supposed to brush your teeth and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, what the heck were you doing? And now it's like this snowball. You know what I'm saying? And like that
100%.
self betrayal stuff it's just doesn't lead to very good places if you let it go too far.
It doesn't, man. And that's kind of the hardest thing. You said something about hating the gym. And look, man, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with everybody listening. I hate working out. You know what I mean? And I've been working out for 10 years consistently. There's
Yeah.
nothing about it that makes but I love this pain. I've never said that. Maybe a couple times when I had a bad day, I took it out on the weights, but there's never been a day where I was overjoyed by
Right.
by that, and
Yeah, man.
but it's the feeling after, that's kind of what I try to keep in the horizon there. I said, you're going to feel better. You're going to do better. So
Mm,
it's the discipline of doing it. I think it's Jocko Willink that
mm,
says, discipline equals freedom. Right.
yeah.
And it's true. Those 4 years that I went before I became certified as a trainer, I was going to school because I was learning about the pain that was involved in working out and how it was. And a lot of that empathy also comes from that is having gone through that, you understand a lot about it, about your body. And so you're thinking to yourself, if you feel that it's difficult, what is this person feeling? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like on a completely different plane. They're not trainers. They're normal, average people that or everyday people, excuse me, that work out and or that work and go home, have families. They're working out and killing it at the gym isn't something that's really happening in their vocabulary. So it's like you really got to meet them where they are. You got to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of come to them to their level and say, okay, hey, you're doing great, and just really simplify it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And kind of, you mentioned meet somebody where they are, and when I hear that, I just think of empathy and how you can be like, like as you said about Jocko Willink, and one of my favorite teachers of empathy, Chris Voss and Derek Gaunt, like they teach about like tactical empathy, where like we still need to get a job done and it's still gonna be hard and it's gonna suck, but like you can still apply empathy throughout that. You know what I mean?
That's right. And then,
Yeah.
man, it makes a world of a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that little bit, it just makes it easier on everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you about your podcast, man. How long you been doing that?
Thanks, man. ValueVerse been going since April 7th, I want to say. So since
Oh,
April,
nice, man.
yeah, I've been sticking with it, and yeah, I would love to collaborate and with you as well and have you
Oh
going
yeah.
on there. Yeah, man, and it's fun. I love podcasting and meeting great people like yourself. Man, the chances of you and I meeting, is so slim, and like I'd have to travel where you are and run into you somewhere. And that's what
Yeah.
podcasting is so awesome for. You get to connect with people that are just all over the world.
Yeah, it's very sweet. I mean, I just did a podcast last night with one of the guys here locally, because again, I mean, Utah, you wouldn't think, but like it's kind of big. I mean, it's big everywhere. It's big everywhere for sure. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, you'd never think it's as big as you think like as it is, right? You never think it's
Hmm.
as big as it is. Like where,
That's true.
yeah, yeah, and like where are you at? You said
Oh,
Virginia.
San Diego now.
Oh, you're back. Okay, back in Cali.
Yep.
Right
Went from
on.
Virginia to LA, and then moved from LA to San Diego in 2019.
Oh, nice, man. California, dude. That's sick, man. California's got a big, I mean, they've got a lot of good podcasting coming out of California, dude. It feels like everyone I meet on, like, we met on that website. They got to
Yeah.
change that name of that website now.
It's so funny that you say that, but yeah, for those, yeah, it's a matchmaker, and
It's Matchmaker, and it's like, yeah, my wife's like, "Where you met him? Where?" I was like, "Okay, hold on."
hold on, let me
No,
explain this. Yeah, yeah,
no,
it's not.
my wife's good, but it does though, dude. You're like, I met him on Matchmaker. It's like, oh, okay, we got to figure
Yeah, the FM helps a little bit, but
a
yeah, it's
little bit, dude. A
yeah,
little.
it's they should change it to like podcast match.
Yeah, something, dude. Yeah.
That probably, which probably exists, but
Yeah, exactly. But no, but that's where we linked up, we met, and there's a ton of people on there. I was like, holy crap, dude.
yeah,
People everywhere,
there's a
podcasts
lot of
everywhere.
people, yeah, with a lot of great stories and people on there that, man, they've everyone's got something going on or something that they've been through, which I think is
Hmm.
so cool. I think it's, just like you say, you think everything's so small. And
Yeah,
it's the same
yeah,
thing. Like, I'm like, man, you got this story and you got to tell it this way, and you got to tell it that way. And I'm like, wow, there's people that are literally, just like you said, man, like writing books
yeah,
about their experience. And that's kind of what it's become now. It's everybody
yeah,
has a story,
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the, I mean, that's like the curse and the blessing, right? Because it's like how you know what I mean. It's like, how do you stand out in front of everything? Well, Naval said it, right? Like, nobody's good at being you except for you, and then, like, but that's everybody's, right? Like, one of my favorite quotes is, "You're special and unique, just like everybody else."
right? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a great realization there as well. And I think every great story follows a certain like recipe, it's
Yeah, yeah.
the
Oh, for sure.
character.
I mean,
Yeah. The character
sure.
goes through like
It's like
some
a
sort
coming
of,
of age experience,
yeah,
like a rite of
yeah,
passage kind of thing. Like, life hits you. Yeah, I read. We're just gonna keep going with it then. But I read the book by Joseph Campbell, The
yeah,
Hero with a Thousand Faces, and
that's right.
he goes over that hero's journey. That was the journey that inspired Star Wars.
Yeah.
Eerily enough, Star Wars is like the same as Lord of the Rings, as Harry Potter. Like, you have one
Hmm.
person, they have this coming of age experience, this rite of passage experience, where it's like life comes in and they're like, we're not letting you off the hook. You're either going to learn this, or you're going to realize you should have learned it and the time will have passed, or something like that.
That's right. That's right. I think
Yeah,
you nailed it.
yeah, yeah. And no, it's a beautiful journey though. I mean,
It is, man. You go through, the character gets some sort of challenge. He meets a guide, right? And then
mhm.
there's a call to action, right? And then there's some sort of, like you said, coming of age, and then the guide helps him to, avoid failure and reach success. So if you look at people's stories, you see this, man, and it's
Yeah,
trippy because they all have something like that in common. You're like, wow,
yeah,
you went through
yeah,
that whole thing. And I think that's what makes a great story. And I think that's
yeah,
kind of going back to the personal training thing. You got to have something that you went through and that you bounced back from and are now, as it says in Joseph Campbell's book, great book, by the way, is
mhm.
returning that and giving it back.
Yeah. Well, one of the, I met a cool guy. I don't know if you know him, but Drew Manning.
Oh yeah.
He's Fit to Fat to Fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the pleasure of interviewing him on my podcast,
Wow. Wow.
and cool story, man. Holy crap. But and there's this weird story where you get like Drew Manning's, where you like force yourself into this. You're like, dude, because he said it on my podcast. He said it, if you just follow him, his story. Like, he's like, I was always in, he talks about him always being in sports, always being fit. And then he was like, I've never had to do this, so I'm going to gain, 80 pounds or 60, 80 pounds, whatever it was the first time. And then I'm going to lose it all. And yeah, man, I was like, geez, dude.
Yeah, that's
insane.
a quite a thing to go through, man.
Yeah, and then when I interviewed him, he was in the middle of Fit to Fat to 40, where he did it when he was 40, and that was, I mean, dude, your whole body's different.
Man, I
You know
remember
what I mean?
being, yeah, I remember being young. I don't remember how long that was. I was a little bit younger, but I remember seeing those photos and being like,
Mhm.
whoa, like you're just being blown away by that whole thing. And but I think it's
Yeah,
so
man.
important to see that, right? And to see
Yeah,
it was everybody, you never, what you see in your bubble and what you're going through in life, you kind of never see outside of that. So when you see that, you're like, oh man, there's somebody that did this, is going through this, and then you feel that sense of that's not just you. You're not alone.
yeah, yeah,
So it was super cool to see that, and that's a great contribution just to get that perspective.
yeah. And he was great to interview. I mean, I love all my guests that come on, truly, because you just learn something different, and that's the point I was going to make earlier. Was like, everybody has a unique story, but it's so cool because you never know. Like I can hear one person's story and just blow past, be like, "Yeah, okay, you know what I mean, and kind of just blow past it and give it no mind, not because I don't care about the story or because it's not important, but because it doesn't hit me. I might not be in the right space. I might not have the right, vibes going on at the time to really understand that. But then I'm in the right spot and I hear a different story or I hear the same story, and it's like all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, oh, dude, yeah. And people get frustrated by that. Like if you're looking on the outside, you're like, dude, I told you that story. I told you something similar like 3 days ago. And you're like, yeah, but I wasn't ready for it. Well, all right, dude. You're like, dang it.
Yeah,
So you gotta like get your ego in check, you know what I'm saying?
right, for sure.
Yeah, man. So you have 2 more gyms coming this year. What else? I mean, any big plans for the podcast? Any more plans for the gyms? What do you got going on, man? What's next?
In the gyms, it's like it's a never ending, constantly changing environment, right? Where you're in business, you're always on the move. You're always finding things out as you go, planning, and that plan, fails. So you got to be ready to, get something else going quickly. So it's
Yeah.
never a dull moment.
Yes, sir.
It's never a dull moment. And I'm
Hmm.
very thankful for, my business partners and our team, the entire team staff really, and just to be able to, you know, to go further with a solid foundation of people around you. So it's constantly evolving. We're constantly tinkering with programs, memberships, things like that, and in the
Hmm.
podcast, I'm always just, trying to make it better and provide as much value as I can. And
Hmm.
just working on being more proactive, trying to do things ahead of time so that I can be in a good position to give back more and be of good
Yeah.
service. I think that's kind of what it is there. We're given these responsibilities, and, as creatives and as doing these things that you and I are doing, having a podcast, it's like it's in our duty kind of
Hmm.
to provide more and more, service, creativity, or value, whatever you want to call it, to give back. And that's kind of what I'm trying to be. I don't want to take all this with me to the grave and just say, well, I learned all this stuff. See ya. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of that?
Right.
And
Right.
that's,
Right.
I
Right.
heard a guy was on my podcast. His name was Trav Bell, and he's all about the bucket list. And he said it, best. He said, "How dare you not share that story, you know, um,
Yeah.
and give back
Yeah.
what you learned on the things that made you who you are now." And I thought that was so profound because it is kind of like a duty to do that. So I'm really trying to focus on providing that, whatever that is. So if it's
Hmm.
giving back the things I learned, if it's helping one more person kind of breathe easier or be, have a better outcome, then that's kind
Yeah.
of, what pulls me right now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, no, I mean, you got a lot of good stuff going, dude. I mean, you got a lot of good stuff going, and it's true. I what I've always found kind of hard though, is like the balance between giving your information to people who need it. Like and maybe you just give it away for free, dude. Maybe you just give it no matter what. And if they take it and run with it, sweet. And if they don't, then they don't, but there was a time in my life where I was really frustrated where I would do that, right? I was training salespeople and I would give them everything. Like I had spent thousands of dollars on this training and I would just be like, look, man, I did this and learned it so that you don't have to spend the money. But if you spend the time with me, you can learn it. And they just, maybe 1 out of 10 would take it and run. And it was so frustrating, but maybe that's the point, man. Maybe you just give it away and you don't, cause you can't control that part. And, maybe you do. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, it's hard to affect a lot of people. And that's why it's like sticking with it. So, I mean, you've heard of even like pod fade, and
Yeah.
people getting into podcasting and then dropping off. And there was some points where I was like, man, this is just, it's too much. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought, all right,
Yeah.
stick with it.
Yeah.
Keep going. And, all you need, there's a great saying, I think, because, you have these goals where you want to like reach 10 million people. And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. And it's not to say that it's not doable, right? It is, but
Right.
you only really need, there's a book called 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. You need
wow.
1,000 people, just
Yeah.
1,000 true fans that will believe in you. And it takes time. But once you have that 1,000, it's you got limitless things that you can do there once they see your path. And there is 1,000 people out there that kind of are listening to this podcast saying, you know what, that makes sense, that clicks, and that's it. That's all it takes, is 1,000 of those clicks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. I appreciate all of the knowledge that you drop. Will you do me a favor and tell everybody where they can find you, where they can, if they're listening to this in Cali, where they can find your gyms, if you got, your podcast, where they can find that? Just go ahead and give yourself the plug.
Yeah, Dalton, thanks for having me on, and a great show. Super great host, make it super fun, man. It's I'm on the web at www.thevalueverse.com. Very active on Instagram at ValueVerse.
Right on. Well, I'll make sure I'll follow you on Instagram, brother. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me on, man. It's a pleasure.